Have you ever felt completely alone in a room full of people? Not because no one was there, but because no one understood you. You've probably tried to explain why you need so much time alone. Maybe you've gotten that polite, pitying look in return. The kind that says you should really go out more, as if solitude is a symptom, as if your wiring is somehow broken. It's like trying to explain color to someone who's only ever known gray. You feel like an alien in your own world, confused by how easily others slip into elevator small talk or weekend brunch chatter. And that is the cruelest kind of loneliness, being surrounded by people, yet feeling completely unseen. There's a word for this, a German one, Fremdschämen. It means the feeling of being a stranger, not just in a room, but in your life. You're physically present, but emotionally somewhere else. It's like everyone else got a manual on how to be human, and somehow you were the only one who didn't get the copy. This isn't a new feeling. The writer Albert Camus captured it in his novel The Stranger. The main character doesn't cry at his own mother's funeral, and the world labels him cold. But maybe he wasn't heartless. Maybe he just felt things differently. Maybe he wasn't broken, just built another way. No one tells you this, but society was built with a specific kind of person in mind, the kind who gains energy from group settings, who thrives in open-plan offices, stand-up meetings, and forced happy hours, who can pitch themselves in 30 seconds at a job interview without breaking a sweat. Even going to the doctor means sitting in a room full of strangers and sharing private things with someone you've never met. For some, that's perfectly normal, even energizing. But for you, it's like running a marathon right after donating blood. It's draining, it's overstimulating. It leaves you empty. And when you show signs of that exhaustion, when you ask for space, silence, stillness, people look at you like you're malfunctioning. You're just shy. You need to come out of your shell. You're being antisocial, as if needing solitude is a flaw, as if silence must be fixed. But here's the truth, no one ever told you there's nothing wrong with you. Do these sound familiar? You prefer texting over phone calls. After social events, you need hours or days to recharge. You have a few close friends, not a crowd. Small talk makes you feel like you're wearing someone else's skin. You need time to think before responding. Crowds anxiety, noise overload. You love quiet, introspective things. Books are deep conversations. If you're nodding along, you're not broken, you're not awkward, you're wired differently. And science backs you up. Psychologist Hans Eysenck found that some people are biologically more sensitive to stimulation. Their brains process more, faster, deeper. That's why loud environments or rapid social dynamics feel like chaos. It's not weakness, it's volume. Your system is simply operating at a higher awareness. Some people need more noise to feel alive. You need less. They feel connected in a crowd. You feel connected in stillness. It's not laziness. It's not a defect. It's neurological. But even with this knowledge, being different still hurts. It hurts when family calls you antisocial because you don't want to go to the Sunday barbecue. It hurts when coworkers joke about you eating lunch alone. It hurts when you cancel plans to preserve your energy and get eye rolls instead of empathy. And eventually you start to question yourself. Maybe I am too weird. Maybe I should try harder to be normal. So you do. You push. You force it. You socialize more. You fake spontaneity. But it feels unnatural, like writing with your non-dominant hand. You can do it, sure. But it's awkward, tiring, and never quite right. And nothing stings more than the loneliness in a crowd. When you're surrounded by people talking, but no one saying anything that matters. You're craving depth. They're offering weather updates. You want to talk about purpose, meaning fears art. They want to talk about last night's reality show. You begin to wonder, am I too complicated? Am I asking for too much? Should I just accept surface level connections because maybe the deep ones don't exist? But the truth is they do. There are people like you, people who crave meaning, people who would rather have one real conversation than 100 empty ones. They're just harder to find, quieter, rare. So while you wait, you develop survival strategies. You wear headphones in public, not just for music, but for protection. You sneak bathroom breaks at social events just to breathe. You tell polite lies to avoid plans you can't emotionally afford. I have other things tonight, you say, when what you really have is a desperate need for stillness. Philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer once said, "We are only truly ourselves when we are alone." For you, that rings true. Alone you feel clear. Alone you don't have to perform. Alone you remember who you are. But even in solitude, you carry something else, guilt. Because society taught you that being alone means something is wrong, that solitude is failure, that success is being surrounded, always seen, always social. But that's a lie. Einstein preferred solitude. Van Gogh painted in silence. Bill Gates locked himself away for think weeks to work without noise. You're in legendary company. Your alone time isn't an escape from life. It's where life makes sense. It's where you process what happened during the day, where you recharge, where your best ideas are born. The real problem isn't your solitude, it's how the world misunderstands it. When your family mistakes it for sadness. When your friends stop inviting you because you've declined too many times. When coworkers whisper that you're odd because you skipped the lunchroom chatter. And so you're torn. One part of you wants to explain, to make them understand that you're not rude, not antisocial, not broken. You're just built differently. The other part of you tired. Tired of justifying your peace. Tired of explaining why silence isn't emptiness. Why being alone doesn't mean being lonely. Why you're not avoiding connection, you're waiting for one that matters. Let this be your reminder: you are not strange. You are not defective. You are not broken. You are deep. You are wired to feel more, process more, reflect more. In a world addicted to noise, you are the silence that still speaks. And that is not something to hide. That is something to honor. You feel like your personality needs a disclaimer, like you owe the world an explanation every time you don't show up, don't join in, don't want to talk. And over time, that constant pressure to smile more, to speak up, to fit in, builds something dangerous: quiet anger. It's not the kind that screams or lashes out. It's slower, internal, a steady frustration with always being the one who has to adapt. You look around and see people chatting effortlessly about things you find meaningless. And you can't help but wonder, how do they have the energy for this? You see people who thrive in constant interaction, loud, uninterrupted streams of social engagement, and you question yourself. Am I broken? Are my boundaries too tight? Am I missing something? They all seem to understand instinctively that frustration is normal. But here's where it gets tricky. If left unchecked, it can twist into something much darker. It can turn into bitterness. And when that happens, everything changes. You start seeing everyone else as shallow. You begin to think you're somehow better because you prefer deeper waters. You become emotionally rigid, dismissive, guarded. And what once was a healthy solitude becomes toxic isolation. The difference is subtle but life-altering. Choosing to be alone because it nourishes you, that's self-respect. Being alone because you hate the world, that's self-destruction in disguise. Healthy solitude replenishes you. It gives you time to create, reflect, recharge. You can still connect with others, maybe not all the time, maybe not in the same ways, but when needed, the bridge is still open. But toxic isolation, that's different. That's when you sit in the same room with your resentment. You feed it one angry thought at a time. You convince yourself that the world is broken, that people are selfish, that there's nothing out there worth connecting to. And that's how your mind starts to build stories, narratives that confirm the loneliness you already feel. You start interpreting every social interaction as proof they're fake. They don't care. They don't understand me. Every party decline becomes validation. See, I knew I didn't belong. Every small misunderstanding turns into a declaration: no one gets me. No one ever will. Psychologists call this confirmation bias, when your brain filters reality to only accept what supports your current belief. It ignores anything that challenges it. If you believe the world is shallow, you'll start noticing only shallow behavior. You'll overlook those rare moments of real connection. You'll miss the people who are trying to reach you quietly. And over time, this creates a kind of mental fortress designed not to protect you, but to trap you. There are entire online communities built around this bitterness. People who were once just misunderstood begin feeding each other's pain until it becomes their identity. They isolate together, validate each other's rage. They start to believe they are better, more aware, the only ones who see the truth. And that's where things get dangerous. Because pain, when unprocessed, becomes ideology. Hurt becomes hate. And what started as a genuine rejection turns into something weaponized. This is how extremism takes root. This is how fanatics are born, not just in politics or religion, but in everyday loneliness. People who once only wanted to be understood become convinced the world doesn't deserve their understanding at all. There's a psychological phenomenon behind this called group polarization. When people with similar frustrations gather in an echo chamber, cut off from different perspectives, their views don't stay neutral. They become more extreme. If you think the world is 30% bad and you surround yourself with people who agree, soon you'll all believe it's 70% bad. It happens slowly, silently, and before long, you're not just withdrawing to recharge. You're withdrawing to retreat. That's why it's so important to be careful, especially in moments of vulnerability. The communities you turn to can either help you heal or harden you. They can remind you that you're not alone, or they can deepen the belief that the world isn't worth your time. So when you're seeking connection, seek it wisely. Choose spaces that validate your pain but also gently encourage your growth. Avoid those that only feed anger and reinforce resentment. Because here's the truth most people won't tell you. You need both. You need solitude, but you also need some exposure to people who are different from you. Not to change who you are, but to keep your perspective healthy. It's like physical exercise. If you only train one muscle group, the others weaken. If you only socialize, you lose touch with your inner world. If you only isolate, you lose the ability to understand others. You need a rhythm, a balance. Maybe for you, it's 80% solitude, 20% interaction. Maybe one meaningful conversation a week instead of 5 forgettable ones. Maybe it's about choosing wisely where your limited social energy goes and who truly deserves it. Because not everyone is shallow, not everyone is fake. There are people like you, quiet, thoughtful, emotionally rich people. They exist. They're just harder to spot because they don't shout for attention. And here's something else you need to remember. You don't owe anyone an explanation. You don't have to justify why you're quiet, why you cancel plans, why you'd rather sit under a tree than at a noisy restaurant. If someone mocks you for being introverted or calls you antisocial, it's their problem, not yours. You're not here to perform. You're here to exist fully in the way that feels true to you. That said, it helps to have one or two people who get you. People you can be raw with. People you don't have to shrink or stretch yourself around. It might be a lifelong friend. It might be a sibling, a therapist, or even an online connection that brings you peace. Because having just one real connection can anchor you when the rest of the world feels superficial. So no, you're not broken. You're not malfunctioning. You're not too sensitive or too distant or too different. You're just you, and preferring solitude in a hypersocial world. That's not a weakness. It's like being left-handed in a world built for the right-handed. Yes, it's harder. Yes, it requires adaptation. But it's not wrong, it's just rare. Your quiet isn't an error, it's an operating system. Your depth isn't a burden, it's your brilliance. And your solitude, it's not where you hide, it's where you become. It starts slowly, almost innocently. You tell yourself you're taking time to recharge, that you just need space to think, to feel, to create. And you do because your mind does bloom in stillness. Your ability to think before you speak helps you communicate with greater care and clarity. It allows you to express yourself precisely with intention. But here's the part no one really talks about, the quiet trap hiding beneath that peace. That distance, the one you've cultivated to feel whole, it can morph into something you never intended, an invisible prison. One day that healthy solitude becomes avoidance. What was once a way to live better turns into a subtle escape from life itself. You begin pulling away not because you're restoring your energy, but because you're afraid. Afraid of being misunderstood. Afraid of being hurt again. Afraid that trying to connect will only lead to disappointment. The danger isn't in being alone. The danger lies in why you're alone. When solitude becomes a hiding place instead of a healing space, that's when it becomes dangerous. When you're not just choosing silence, but avoiding connection. Not out of need, but out of fear. And then something else starts to happen. You begin to feed a quiet, bitter narrative. You see others laughing, connecting, living out loud, and instead of curiosity, you feel contempt. Every shallow conversation becomes confirmation. See, I was right to keep my distance. You start to romanticize your solitude. You tell yourself you're above it all. I'm better than them. I see what they can't. I'm deeper, wiser, more awake. It feels noble, almost holy. But underneath that illusion is something fragile. Fear, the fear of trying again, the fear of reaching out and being rejected, the fear that you're not as special as you hope, or that the pain wasn't just caused by others, but also something inside yourself. And that's where the darker side of isolation truly lives. It no longer preserves you, it begins to sabotage you. You start believing you're better off alone, not because it feels good, but because it feels safer than the risk of connection. And make no mistake, solitude can be addictive. It can feel more secure than building relationships. It can seem more honorable than admitting you need companionship. It's easier to retreat than to repair. But here's the hard truth. We all need some kind of connection. It doesn't have to be constant. It doesn't have to be loud. But it does need to exist, because without it, you begin to lose perspective. Without other people to reflect your thoughts and challenge your assumptions, your reality becomes distorted. You start believing that your perceptions are absolute truth. You drift into extremes. You lose nuance. You forget that most people are not all good or all bad. They're complex like you. There's a paradox here, one the philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre captured with a haunting truth: hell is other people. And yet in the same breath he also said, we need the gaze of others to truly know ourselves. People can hurt us, but they also help us grow. They challenge us. They mirror parts of us we cannot see on our own. That's why it's vital to stay alert, to recognize when your withdrawal is no longer healing, but harming. When the thoughts you're feeding start to taste like resentment, when every social failure becomes exaggerated in your mind, when even wanting to connect starts to feel impossible, these are signs that it's time. Time to take one step back toward the world. And it doesn't have to be dramatic. It can be one person, one conversation, one simple message. It can begin online behind a screen in safety and slowly grow into something real. The point isn't to erase your solitude, though. It's to stop it from turning into a black hole. Because when you isolate completely, your world shrinks. You stop growing, you stop receiving new input, and slowly you lose access to the parts of you that need reflection to evolve. But let's be clear, the world needs people like you, people who observe, people who question, people who value quality over noise. You see beyond the surface. You bring meaning to a world that often moves too fast to notice anything. But in order for your gifts to matter, you must stay connected to life, in your own way, on your own terms. No one's asking you to be loud or popular or fake, but you do need to find ways to remain open, to stay in motion, to keep your inner world from freezing over. You are not broken, you are not flawed, but your uniqueness, your quietness, your insight, your depth can become a prison if you're not careful. That's why awareness is key. Learn to walk the fine line. It's possible to be selective without being isolated, to prefer depth without resenting the surface, to cherish solitude without fearing connection. If you've made it this far, if these words feel like they were written just for you, it's because you recognize this inner tension. You've lived it, you've wrestled with it, you've wondered how to keep your solitude sacred without letting it consume you. So know this, you are not alone in this journey. There are millions of quiet souls out there trying to find the same balance, trying to honor their nature without getting lost in it. And if you feel like you need guidance through this inner terrain, that's why I created my ebook Alchemy and Archetypes, a practical map for turning your solitude into strength and your pain into clarity. It's filled with tools to bridge theory and emotion and to help you turn distance into direction. And if this message stirred something in you, if it gave language to something you've long felt but couldn't quite name, then let this be your next step. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and most importantly, share this with someone who may be silently wrestling with the same shadows. The path is clearer now. Let's keep walking it together.